the ultimate reference on this outer system dwarf planet. But the new one is New Stars for a New Era, along with a few textbooks. And not to forget that he's also a filmmaker and a professional clown instructor, and wrote a book, another manual, Angels Can Fly. So it's many direct.
A Renaissance man. There we go.
Yeah. Now, Melissa, hey, she's here. Melissa, your timing couldn't be better. And I apologize. I was up at 5 myself this morning, but the time clock, but we're on the Pacific, yes? And Melissa, where's the L? My computer doesn't want it. Elvira Billington, another typo. Trust the longer journey. I love that.
I'll have to look up Arriva and see what that means.
Yeah. And it's a blog on Substack. Melissa's enrolled in school in not Ireland, but in Australia, in Master of Environmental Management at the University of Queensland. And that is her wonderful blog that supports the school, and she works at it. It's a beautiful testimonies of many factors, because she's also a yoga teacher, an international one of great quality, and a creative soul to the bone, an actor in film, commercial, theater. She's just created a new one, Heaven on Earth, and wait till you see the picture at the halftime. You will want to check it out. So Melissa, like myself, is a Dwarf Planet University graduate, but she assists Alan in many respects now with classes, teaching, and books writing, and this is going to be a wonderful event. Myself, I founded Talk Cosmos, and I'm an evolutionary astrologer besides etceteras, and you can check that out. So maybe we should start talking about Sedna, the mythology.
Lovely.
Yes. Well, she was an Inuit person, whether she's a princess or a woman that, for whatever reason, had difficulty finding a spouse, but finally did.
So shall I take over?
Yes, please.
I don't think she wanted a spouse, to be honest.
That's it. There are different ways to approach the myth, and myths bring us truths across time and culture, but we have to interpret them for the new culture, and there's different versions of the myth. So we're kind of working with and we have a sort of a more empowered view of ourselves these days, and particularly women, than we've had in the past. And so one reading of the myth is that she's kind of a helpless woman who gets married off by her father to a sort of a monster, and has trials through that. But there's other sort of readings of the myth that she's more intentioned through this, and she's actually sort of transcending from that sort of traditional parental view of the world, finding a sort of a magic master who's a bit of a, dangerous thing, depending on how you look at it, and then is rescued from that by her father, and then kind of sacrificed by her father for his own survival in his struggle with that monster being. And I think essentially, the lesson of the myth, if we can pull it into the modern day, what I would say is we go on a journey in our lives. It's a soul journey. It's a spiritual journey, and we have to leave the known world, the tradition behind, and we have to venture out into the dangers of the world, and we can't actually sort of return. to the the real world, the old world. And we have to let go of that. She's on the boat. The monster bird that she married is making a storm, and they're all both about to drown, the father and the daughter. And he throws her overboard to save himself. She doesn't want to drown. She hangs onto the boat. He takes an axe and he chops her fingers off, so she can't hold on anymore, one by one. And she sinks to the bottom of the ocean and becomes the goddess of the sea. And all of her fingers become the fish, the seals and the walruses that the Inuit people lived on. And she's not dead. She's a goddess. She's alive, and she's still part of the Inuit world. Their gods are not dead and in heaven like ours have been. And so she has a relationship. They have to look after her, otherwise she won't send bountiful food. She becomes a goddess of the food supply. So she transcends. She transcends to a new consciousness, a new power, a goddess power, and she has to let go of the boat, let go of the old world to transcend. The sinking is not a problem. She didn't die. She didn't suffocate. The problem was the axe on the fingers, and so the problem is holding on to the old. And so this is what Sedna teaches us. She's all about getting us onto the spiritual path, getting us into that consciousness, transcendent consciousness experience, where we have to let go of the old and transcend to a new understanding of who we are and what the world is all about.
I find that, I'm sorry, did I?
Yeah. No,
okay, so powerful, because melodrama, we can get caught up, and so much mythology is all about very stark in that case. It's like a cartoon series going forth. But this idea that you're presenting, and I've read since, once the light's turned on, the dark's gone, right? I mean, we can't go back. It's like we see it, even if it's lightning out and Uranus or something. Yeah. And the other, right? And I love this whole transcendence and deconditioning, all the, you were mentioning before the relationship between Sedna and Pluto that's gone on for years through different signs. And it's this energy that Pluto's saying, transmute, let go, helping.
That's right.
I think one thing that I imagine is a shift is that in Christian worldviews, transcendence is ascension, is rising up into the air. So this immersion into the water does seem like a tragedy or a problem, as you say, Alan. So the immersion and the connection to our planet and to then be feeding the people from herself, which in itself is also a Christian association, right? The blood of my body, the bread of my body. And I've recently been studying narwhals, and narwhals are the unicorns of the sea. Yes. So I just wanted to bring that in because we talk about the seals and the walruses but specifically the narwhals have this beautiful long, it's actually a bicuspid, a canine tooth. They have one canine tooth that grows out into a unicorn spiraled horn, and they can dive down 1,500 meters, 5,000 feet, and they can do that 15 times a day. And they're struggling these days with the changes in the seasons and the cold, but just wanted to bring in the narwhals.
This is a real live. I'm
not making this up. These are real live creatures.
I know. I had to go over there with you. It was like, oh my gosh, 15 times a day. That is remarkable.
They're amazing.
Integrating top and bottom. I had just noticed today was because I look at Mayan astrology, which I haven't quite integrated at all, but it's another focus. And today is 10 Kama, which is 10 with the fingers. That's why I'm bringing it up. And it's where they join together. It's a really powerful day. So amazing. And Kama is life and death. It's one of the cycles. This all has to do with their creation. But it's a matter of changing society. So that's an interesting factor here. Well,
oh, and the reason that I brought in the narwhals is that they are Inuit. The Inuit hunt them, and this myth comes from the Inuit and Sedna.
Oh, do they?
One of the names for this goddess.
Oh, it is. We are body, soul, and spirit, and nature. That's another factor. Is that I like, Melissa, what you say about the subconscious fear about going into the water. We can't breathe. It's one thing to go up in the air. Maybe we can breathe with the wings. Who knows? You know, people think
right.
Down there, fins. Fish angels. So, in other words, this idea that, but it goes back to that embracing nature. That's really that factor of us.
And maybe even being embraced by nature, right? She's immersed within the environment and is part of it and giving of it. You know, there's not
a nurturing part of it, totally.
But it's not a hierarchy.
And this goes to the octaves that Alan presents. I took this from notes that similar to other astrology, Mercury and Uranus, for instance, are octaves as we consider how to relate these outer planets. So in a nutshell, there's the moon, our personal planet here, and then Ceres, which is actually our personal goddess because she's between the closer asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter rather than way out there between Saturn and Uranus, is it? So, and that's nurturing. You know, I'm picking that up from what you're saying.
So what we're talking about here is higher octaves of inner planet energies, and the higher octave takes that energy to a more spiritual level. But it's not like Ceres is sort of a more spiritual moon. It's that Ceres acts on the moon from a more spiritual level. Even though Ceres is an inner planet, she's got a connection to the spirit world. She was the only goddess that lived on Earth with humans. She chose to do that, and so she does bring the divine into our real world. And she acts on the moon to repolarize the moon and make the moon more spiritual. And Sedna does the same with Ceres. So we can see from the moon that personal, emotional, survival sort of, this is me. And Ceres, that give and take of love that keeps us alive, essentially, a more spiritual version of that moon. And then Sedna, a more spiritual version again, taking that give and take of nurturing that keeps us alive, out to a soul level where over a number of lifetimes, yes, we're nurtured through a give and take of love, but in any one lifetime that can be manifest in all sorts of ways that are meaningful to us on a soul level, basically.
I like the idea as well of the harmonics, the music of it, you know, inherent in the word octaves, that there's a resonance. There's you know, the active aspect that you're talking about, but also this tone, if I could imagine a tone for that default vulnerable position of the moon, and then kind of a higher tone on the keyboard for Ceres and then for Sedna, and how they harmonize.
That's it, exactly, and reference one another, sort of thing in there.
And I'm thinking the micro and the macro, which to me in the universe is always so evident, and here it shows how that the interconnection. And amazingly, on this chart, which we're not, folks, we're going to be chatting a lot, but this is reference material to kind of give a groundwork framework. And then you can go back. We have podcast people, so I know that you'll be listening up. But for those folks with YouTube, you can go back and study this at greater detail. So we're not giving a huge analysis. But the fact is that in this chart, which is April 27th and 28th, depending where on the globe you are, this year, it ingressed Gemini to stay for its 56 years until I think it's 2068. And meaning that I'm bringing up the fact here of Moon Trine series, 2 of the
exactly.
octaves are being energized to help this facilitate, you could say, that transference, that mutation.
Yeah, and the the big thing is the Sedna Pluto trine that you mentioned earlier. Why is that big? Well, the outer planets, when they change sign, we feel them. There's big changes in the world when the outer planets change sign, and we've just had Pluto go into Aquarius, and there's been a lot of talk about that because we're all sort of paying attention to Pluto because Pluto is transformative and kind of rolls us over if we don't pay attention. And so
they all seem to do this.
And they all do this, that's right. So it's
it's a good point. Yeah. I agree.
And so Pluto going into Aquarius is all sort of collective consciousness type stuff. And Pluto there is sort of really working on our understanding of that collective consciousness space that our personal consciousness develops within. Now, Sedna's gone into Gemini, and Gemini is all about that personal space, intellectual space, consciousness, personal consciousness. And so we've got collective consciousness, transformation happening, and we've got transcendent change in personal consciousness happening. So those two things are trine. They're working together.
And another thought to see how this might, if it comes to me, how it might be a little significant now are the dispositors, because we're talking about Mercury instead of Venus. And if we go to modern, we're talking about Uranus, not just Saturn. So and those two are octaves too. So I'm just thinking it might help. With this particular chart, I added all the dwarfs because we need them. They may have something to say.
They're there anyway, whether we want to.
Just like we were saying for Pluto, the more aware we are, the better it is. So,
It is. And that's really, I think, what Gemini lends to this is a matter of labeling things so that we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not echoing. Am I the only one that hears it?
I do hear a little bit of an echo. Maybe this is a good moment to clear my nose.
Because we all have headphones on, I think. Alan, you have. I
don't have headphones on, so perhaps it's me that's doing it.
It could be because that's unfortunately with StreamYard, it likes to talk back without them. So
I'm not hearing an echo, so it's me.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I can't do much about it.
What I would say in relation to this chart here is, it looks confusing, I'm going to suggest to people who are new to it, because there's just so many bodies there. Yeah. The fact is we do have 10 new planets, and so we do have new bodies. And what is that talking about? It's talking about the new complexity of our world that we are now coming to embrace, coming to understand. Our consciousness is growing to the point where we can embrace a larger complexity, a larger understanding of who we are and the world we're in. we know, I'm just going to jump us quickly to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. 200 years now, we've been studying these new ones. They're new for traditional astrology. And so we see them as new consciousnesses that's come into our lives. They were unconscious planets, and now we have intuitive consciousness, Uranus. We have spiritual consciousness, Neptune, and we have psychological consciousness, Pluto, which are present in our world. We can talk about them. We can, people publish books about them. And so they're not unconscious, they're now conscious new energies that we have. And so we've discovered these 10 new ones. And there's more than 10, but they're the 10 big ones. And so that's the new complexity. Now I look at this chart and it's too complex for me because this is solar fire generated and I'm not familiar with the glymph. So that's why but that's, don't be daunted by that. I'm going to encourage everyone. Embrace at least one of the new ones and sort of make a friend of one at a time is probably the best way to go. And so just put them in your chart one at a time and sort of work with them, feel them.
Exact. And that key does show down below what they are.
They are good.
Right. And despite that, I think what stands out here, regardless of, Haumea, we know that Haumea is in Scorpio and that therefore and that's a whole rebirth, a deep rebirth. And of course, it's been sextile to Pluto for long time. What do I have? I have a square here.
And an inconjunct. So
yeah, inconjunct. But I guess what I'm thinking is Chiron, that healing energy that behind all of this.
It is a square. It's a square between. Yeah, it's a square. That's the problems we're having in the world at the moment. I mean, it's the trine we were talking about with Pluto and Sedna. Sedna's inconjunct.
Yes.
We've got it there, Haumea, and Haumea is square Pluto, and it's that inconjunct between Sedna and Haumea, and the square Pluto.
How do we get to that rebirth? Like, we want a rebirth. The world wants us to rebirth. They're saying there is, and it's our destiny, it's soul. We got to let go.
Yep.
But how much can we totally, it's a matter of hanging, it's a process. And I think that emotional healing is maybe just like you were saying in part there, Melissa, not being fearful about submerging, embracing.
Absolutely. Transcending. Yeah, totally, absolutely right. Yes, we have to let go of the old. We can't, it's so hard to do. We're terrified of letting go of the old. Look at the war in the Middle East. Everyone's holding on to something very old and just attacking one another until they're all destroyed. That is Haumea. One of her discovery events, one way we understand these new planets is to look at events around the discovery that sort of portend the energy of the planet.
There we go. Why don't we catch up with this after the half break, and then we can put the slides away. So this will be perfect. Thank you, Alan. I am with Alan Clay, astrologer from New Zealand with Dwarf Planet University Astrology, and Melissa Elvira Billington, who's also associated with that university and as an astrologer. We are thrilled to continue with Sedna on this journey of unknowns and new life. Thank you. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We're currently in the period of Taurus. By leaving a cycle based upon initiation, the energy of Taurus integrates spirit into a solid form of matter, that is tangible and physical. It's an earth sign, concerned with self-sufficiency and the values to maintain the strength of a life form throughout its survival.
This is Martha Norwalk, every Sunday morning beginning at 9 a.m. Thanks in part to Natasha Venter at intuitiveclarifications.com, we cover the world of animals. This week, May 26th, it's an encore presentation. Tune in to hear our last healing show with Dr. Nels and Linda Rasmussen. Together, they helped listeners and their animal friends with emotional, behavioral, and physical issues, and you can receive a surrogate healing just by listening and following along with Linda's instructions. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific on KKNW. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Alternative Talk, 1150 on AM, 98.9 HD3 on HD, 1150kknw.com on the web.
Hi, we are back again. We will come back to that. At the half hour, Alan Clay with Dwarf Planet Astrology.com is the site to go to for Dwarf University. And Alan just created a new book, New Stars for a New Era. It's out, and I have it. It's about all 10 planets. You can find it either at his site or any of these great Amazon, Walmart, and Barnes & Noble. And he also wrote Sedna, Consciousness, and the two textbooks. One is Hamea, and Angels Can Fly is that other book about the clowns. And here is his website for Dwarf Planet Astrology.com. We have it right. So anything, Alan, you'd like to add here at this moment about your class?
Melissa and I jointly wrote the Haumea and Maki Maki books. I have to say that. And that, yes, the new book, New Stars for a New Era, is written for a general public. So you don't have to have any astrological knowledge to read it. It does have some basic astrology in an appendix at the back if you want to go into that, and you don't have it already. So I just encourage that. The book is sort of I'm popularizing the dwarf planets with this book.
It's very great. And in the school, I know you have well, maybe we should go into Melissa. Is there anything you want to mention about classes now or anything of that sort?
Well, we can mention that Melissa is teaching a series class starting in a few weeks' time.
A few weeks. Mm.
Yeah. No, I was thinking too, I think you're adding another dwarf planet at the end of the year. Yes, it's Leila.
No, that one will be next year, in fact.
Okay, then which will it be for this year?
This year we're working on Vada. So we just started incorporating Vada. And so Vada is a wonderful new energy that is all about sort of inspiring, bringing light to the darkness and sort of guiding through inspiration.
What degree is Varda right now, if I may
Right
ask?
now, that's a question.
Or what sign? I'm sorry, I put you on the spot, or you can look at it. But I was reading about Varda and wondering, what is? I hadn't looked into Varda. We did Salacia last year, which is that, true love, and it's so fascinating. I'm jumping here a little bit. Several goddesses, well, Ceres, Sedna, and Salacia don't come on right away. They hide or transform, and then they become. With Salacia, she became like Sedna, but she hid a lot back in the seaweeds because she's with Neptune, and then she comes forward. So in one's own chart, I began to realize, gee, where am I hiding? This, come on out wherever you are.
Yep.
And with the real Sue, please stand up like that.
Salathia's got that opportunistic hiding, and Marky is the other one that has that blending into the background.
Well, that's right. Because that's right, because there's that whole process of the contest, but then whoever the winner is, it gets sequestered, and the clan gets all the nurturing with the food, and but the person gets more of a nurturing of their soul, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
They connect to the divine for the collective.
Yeah. It's just, it's wonderful. I love it. Okay, we will go now to Melissa. And Melissa, Trust the Longer Journey is her blog on Substack. A yoga teacher, actor, author, and going to school.
Yes. It's a humbling moment to be going back for a grad degree at a later age.
I did.
But hopefully inspiring. And I have, to loop it a little bit back to Sedna in the series, I have Sedna conjunct my sun, Venus conjunction. So in my life, I have definitely found that I've had to surrender over and over and over and immerse. And so
if I may,
Yep.
That's bringing that up. My Sedna, and that's what is 1 degree from my North Node. So it's a constant process too. I will understand.
And I, as you mentioned before, have been an artist, a performer, and so I have one little bit that I did. I think when I was studying one of the courses a few years ago, during lockdowns, actually, I did a little bit that I was looking at last night called Seance with Sedna. Let go the boat, yo. It's more of like, has a little bit of rapping in it.
Nice.
My version of rapping.
I love, you're so creative.
So,
continue. Yes.
I think that's for me how I embody these. And it's really important for me to embody, and that's why I'm also excited about facilitating the series, because she, to me, is the embodiment, is the looping back in to the inner octaves or resonances of these one's way out in deep space. And that's what Heaven on Earth is intending to do. And as soon as I finish this term in the next 2 weeks, I need to write the show and get it up and ready to go. The advertising, the image is to motivate me. I'm like committed now.
It does. I'm just out there. That's exciting. Thank you, Melissa. Myself, I have a blog that I've been doing for the last couple of months, starting it again, resurrecting it. And when I wrote the one on Sedna, I'm not giving all the facts, nothing but the facts. It's like what comes, and it was about time. This huge time is 11,406 years that it transits. And the next one, amazingly, and I, of course, learn all this through the class, it will be in 2076, which is just after, it'll be in Cancer. But the point being, what an amazing world we live in, where it's cycling back, such as it was, and the tools and the transformation and everything. So I'm doing that. And I'm also on a new little podcast once a month with Liz Mouchette. And so you can check that out. And thank you, everybody, for joining with the YouTube and signing up for the newsletter and checking out Talk Cosmos. Back to Sedna, that discovery date that you mentioned.
So yes, it was actually Haumea, which is in conjunct Sedna, that's right, and squaring Pluto that we were talking about. And so Haumea's just gone into Scorpio. As Sedna's been going into Gemini over the last couple of years, and Pluto's been going into Scorpio, into Aquarius. Haumea's been going into Scorpio, and this has been a huge change. And she's an activist. She's an earth goddess and a fire goddess. She comes from Hawaii with the, as you know, Sue, the molten lava that comes up out of the earth and creates. So she's the goddess of rebirth, and she brings regeneration. We were talking about the new, embracing the new, and we were talking about we have to let go of the old. We have to let go of the old to make space for the new, and this is a big thing with Haumea. If we do let go of the old and allow the refresh that's always happening in our lives, particularly now, because of the changes that are happening, as I say, all of these planets changing sign, it's really changing our world and our interaction with it. And so, so she's a dynamo. The square to Pluto in conjunct with Sedna, this is where we're having these terrible wars at the moment in the world. It was a biquintile with Neptune played into that. And you'd think a biquintile, which is an evolutionary flow, would be good, but the Middle East war is a lot about that biquintile with Neptune. It's the old spiritual ideas and Haumea, the new spiritual growth. Haumea is the octave, the higher octave of Neptune. And so takes Neptune's psychic opening into a deep connection with the oneness of everything. We are all one. Everything is one. We imagine we are individuals. We experience ourselves as individuals, but we are all one. And that's Haumea's sort of connection with Source that just energizes. And so that connection to Source in the scorpionic sort of energy of sort of sorting it all out, is really powerful at the moment. If we're hanging on to the old, it's going to be a lot of trouble. So the discovery event that I was sort of talking about, a discovery event is something where we can see the energy of the planet manifest in some event that happens as we discover the planet. Something we discover it, and we discovered Pluto, and we discovered nuclear power at the same time.
Yes, it's very it's significant. It's a really important factor you had to bring up.
I'd like to say discover, because obviously Pluto was there. What we discovered was the equipment, the ability to see him.
That's it. Yeah, our consciousness evolved to the point. Yeah,
and it's the Oh, go ahead.
Let me just give I really want to give the discovery event because letting go of the old. What was it? There was a tsunami. There was an underground sort of earthquake. Something happened I think it was in the Indian Ocean, and there was a tsunami in Southeast Asia, and a lot of people died because they were washed away with the tidal wave that comes, but no animals died. No animals died. The animals felt it in advance and ran inland. And all the people just stayed swimming in the swimming pool because they didn't know. And that's, if we're in the old, we'll get washed away with the new. It'll be, and in Scorpio, it'll be aggressive. It'll be, it'll be scorpionic. It's deep and meaningful, and change will happen. Change will happen.
Just like that iceberg, that glacier comes in and moves it. I mean, I'm thinking of Scorpio, but anyway, but it's Pluto. Pardon me, but yes.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, it does. And
may I add something in?
Please.
Yes. Please, no.
You're saying hold on to the old, and the way that I would equate that to individuals in our lives is identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think particularly not only Sedna conjunct my sun, but being in Aries and having Chiron in Aries, I've had a lot of history of that I am wound, of the identity. And so maybe it's a little more familiar area of growth and healing for me, but it's still, even with that, challenging for the human ego to want to let go of identity, whether it's a religious identity or it's, even in astrology, so many times we have so many people coming into Dwarf Planet University with, they use a different chart or they have a different, way of looking at things and being open to that and that oneness and how does anyone feel centered and secure? Is there any security? Is there any such thing as safety or security with so much change?
There is when we go to the center and we find that spirit within, because that is without. Because I agree with you, what you're saying. And it is a reminder that the universe is really propelling us to start looking at this connection that makes us one. And I'm thinking in Gemini, I was suddenly, as you were talking about identity, because mine's in Aries too, and it's right there. And I'm always re-becoming. It's true. It's like it's separating away and it wants to become something new. But with Gemini, it'd be what's our neighbors? What's our neighborhood? When you think about, like here, we're all together and you're across the Pacific from me. Or siblings. Who's our sisters and brothers? Like I'm with Liz Mouchette and she calls us star sisters. So, it's really changing these boundaries.
This is also Haumea in the sense of the collision family that we create in the world, where we seek out kind of soul buddies that we can commune with and sort of, work together just to help us grow on many.
Yeah. I like that collision. I hadn't thought of that. That seems so atomic, like plutonic, right? It's like the separating them out. But it's good. It's fusion.
Yeah, we can bang off one another. New stuff is created, is spun out through the experience. No, I love that.
You do have the discovery events for Sedna, which I was excited to see because Alan tends to love the AI, which is, I like it. But I like the other one a little bit more. So it's well balanced in that way, I think. The discovery event.
Which one do you like?
2003 with the laboratory that brought up that we have dark matter and that actually there's 95% of the universe that we're unable to see, which exactly goes back to Kabbalah. When you learn Kabbalah, I say Kabbalah, they say 1% is all we can see. Well, whether it's 1% or 5%, it's not a whole lot.
Well, also the five senses, our five usual senses. So sight is the main one. Most of our energy sensorially goes through sight. And but the other senses are, maybe make up that other 5% if Kabbalah has one for sight and the other they're
saying 1% of the whole they're not taking it down literally like that. It's much more metaphysical.
Okay.
Difference.
So yes, I mean the fact that what we can perceive through our five senses, and I do have to wonder, like, how can you measure the amount of what you don't know? Don't you need to know it enough to be able to measure it?
Well, I mean, how this has worked out. Let me just give you because there's two scientific experiments that have sort of agreed, and they've been done in different ways. And so everything in the universe is moving at a huge speed out from the center.
Since that initial collision, the Big Bang.
Yes, since that
Well,
initial.
but there's many, but there was bangs before that. So
Well,
it's
possibly,
not
but we
just,
don't know what happened before
yeah,
that.
it's like an accordion, I think. It
Yeah.
keeps coming and going. Anyway, lead
Right.
on.
But that was a singularity, that Big Bang. We can't know actually what happened before that. But yes, one idea is it's accordions. But at the moment, it's not slowing down to accordion back
No,
in.
it's
And so
expanding.
that's why they're saying that there is something called dark matter and dark energy, which is present in the universe that keeps the universe expanding. It's actually speeding up to go out. And so there must be other stuff there, other energies, other stuff that is interplaying with the stuff we can see and hear and touch and smell. And for that to happen, there must be this other 95% of and so that, and yes, so what is that? So it's a discovery event for Sedna. Let's put it in the place. And what's that saying? Well, Sedna's got an orbit of 11,406 years. So Pluto's what is it? 250? I'm thinking or something.
58. Yeah, 48.
48.
Yeah,
48.
48.
And so that's been sort of the biggest orbit we've sort of encompassed till now. So suddenly we've got this huge new orbit, and it's like a comet shape. So it's closest to the Earth at one point and the Sun, and way, way away at another point. And that's like morphing our understanding. That's like morphing our limits of the solar system, our limit of consciousness in terms of the outer planets being consciousness, to a whole new level. And that's what that 95% to 5%. We've been operating in the 5%, and now the other 95% is coming available to us. It's not just dark matter and dark energy in the universe. Those are symbols for our astrological understanding. And so that's, and whether it's true or it's revised at a future point into a new understanding of the world doesn't matter, because it gives us that metaphor.
Yeah, I love that, because it seems to me it's the magic of the world. We talk about attraction, law of attraction, and it's been brought up, which was just some years back where it got so popular. And now it's really understood that it's how you feel, it's emotion, is how you connect. But still, how can anybody really explain synchronicities that happen when you are on that level of faith and trust, not just blind, but you're acting in the world, you're doing what you can, and things keep coming in the right way. There is this whole idea of this surrender of what you see isn't all touch.
Yeah.
The beyond into the spirit matrix that is the oneness that everybody has, that some people are, et cetera, cognizant of. Past, future.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
totally. That's it. And that's what Sedna is opening us to, as we discovered. So we discover these new planets. We're open to this consciousness. Yeah. And now with the dive into Gemini, we're being pushed into a new sort of this. We're out of the boat.
And it's good to get the questions, Melissa, because that reminds me, we're in Gemini. What else would we do if we couldn't have a dialogue back and forth, right? And question, like, well, how'd that come up anyway? Like, what is it all about? It's like that probing. It's a lot of voices, a lot of, and that again goes back to what I'm remembering. You have to center your own into your own self spirit to be able to determine listen or don't listen, or where to put in the juggle, or the juggle or the puzzle.
Where to juggle the puzzle. Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, lovely.
But also, I think with AI, there's some feelings or thinking that it's not artificial intelligence, that you can't separate natural and synthetic. And we're here on the land of, Australia, Aboriginal or First Nation turnaround or dreaming. And, what I've been learning, I'm certainly no expert in that realm, but what I've been learning is that it's all the turnaround. It's all the sacred. The patterns, the messages are everywhere from that paradigm, that world
like
view. So when we
goosebumps.
talk
I love
about
it.
artificial intelligence, well, is it?
That's a misnomer.
Yeah, it's just
There are forms of intelligence, whether we're going beyond our five senses or we're going beyond what we've known as our inherent intelligence to
that's
machine learning their intelligence. So
Thank
we're getting
you,
smarter,
Melissa.
maybe.
Yeah, well, Melissa, that's
Wiser.
beautiful
I
because
don't know.
labels are only that. I remember thinking like pagan, for instance. Who called them pagan? Well, there were people that weren't pagan. But meanwhile, we get those names. But here, artificial. What's artificial? Maybe, whether it's clothing or whatever. So it's subjective, and yet it's the process. It's a dialogue.
Iterative, continually being re-seen and reworked.
More learning. We're learning a lot. Thank you, Alan Clay. And thank you, Melissa Elvira.
Thank you. Good to chat.
It's been good.
Canoodle with you both.
And on, folks, the conversation keeps moving. May yours too.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.